All right, welcome everybody, both live and on YouTube, to the bi-weekly Backdrop Community Users Group meeting. My name's, I'll start and introduce myself, and then we'll go around the room just to give a quick introduction. My name is Luke McCormick. I'm known as Cell Ear on various internet forums. I'm a web project manager and business analyst and other such things in San Ramon, California. And I'd like to welcome you. Let's go around. I'll just take it from the order of my screen. We'll do Greg first and then Robert.
Hey, I'm Greg. I'm most of the time in Australia, but I'm currently in central Greece. Generally interested in anything related to Backdrop in any way that I can help. Time is the limit. Yes, I'm excited about many different things. Yep, thanks. Who's next? Sorry.
All right, Robert, then Tim.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, in Altadena, California. Take it away, Tim.
Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota today. I'm looking forward to going down to Minneapolis this weekend. Whoever's next. Barton.
Hi, I'm Martin Price, Yorkshire Pudding on the internet. I'm from Northeast England. I'm a web developer and Backdrop contributor. Go to Justin.
Find my unmute button. Justin Kaiser, Kaiser Jibby on the internet, and I'm in Muncie, Indiana. So,
all right, let's go to Michael, and then Alessandro is the last one.
Sure, I'm Michael Bagnell, and I work in the U.S. federal government space. I'm Elusive Mind on the web, and I also contribute to Drupal as well as Backdrop, and anything else I can get my hands on.
Thank you. Did we get Greg?
We did.
Okay.
Alessandro's the last one. No, Alessandro hasn't gone.
Good. Well, I tell you what, Alejandro, before you go, I'll just you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then just go right into introduce your topic and jump right in.
Yeah. So I'm Alejandro. I'm RG Piano on online. I contribute to Backdrop for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm in Westminster, Colorado right now. And Tim, thank you for inviting me to do this presentation today. The topic is hooks and how to extend Backdrop. And it's a little intimidating. I look around and a lot of developers here who know this stuff inside and out. So, but this is going to be recorded, so I hope that it will be helpful for people who are not familiar with this. This is the same presentation I did for Backdrop Live a couple of months ago, I think September, right? I'm going to start by sharing the slides. I want to say that the slides and the also the examples that I'm going to show now are in my GitHub account. So if you're interested, you can download those from there. Can you see my slides right now?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, I'm Alejandro RG Piano. I'm the owner of a one-person company called Tenuto Web LLC. I'm a musician. I'm actually a performer, pianist. I teach also at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I do work with Backdrop and Drupal as a hobby, but also as a weekend warrior, if you will, doing some working with nonprofits, specifically music teacher associations, providing different services for those. If you're interested in seeing my playing, I have a YouTube channel that you can also visit there. As I mentioned, all the examples are in my GitHub account on RG Piano /BD Live 2023 presentation, and you'll find a module that I created. I put together with all the examples. It's a custom module and also these slides. So I'm just going to go a little quickly here. I have to actually finish at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, so I have about 45 minutes. So I'm going to be skipping some of the examples, but I will introduce some of those in depth. So starting by defining hooks. What are hooks? These are functions that are added by the site developer, usually in custom modules. There are functions that are executed by Backdrop at specific points of the page request, and they're documented as hook low-dash XXX. In this case, there's hundreds of different hooks. They are usually documented in files that end with API PHP. For example, if you open your Backdrop installation and open system.api.php, you're going to find a lot of documented hooks there. These are kind of examples of what the parameters are and how, what they do and how to use them. So I often, suggest if you're interested in learning about hooks, these API.php files are the ones that will basically teach you. So when you implement a hook, you have to basically replace the word hook here and use the name of your custom module. You usually put them in the .module file, and that's where Backdrop will look for these hooks and will execute them at specific points of the page request. So as I said, they are typically placed in the custom module file. Some of the hooks can also be placed in template.php, so it is possible to do that as well. And there's full documentation in the Backdrop CMS site. There's a link there. That documentation is basically the same thing you will find in those API.php files for the most part. Okay, so how can hooks help developers? Hooks basically do three things. They extend Backdrop. They react to events. For example, when a user submits a form. And they also they alter values or output. So you can use hooks to alter things that will be sent to the browser, for example, or things that will be saved to the database. So you can usually implement the hooks to make those alterations. So these are some examples of useful hooks. The ones that extend Backdrop, you can see there hook menu, hook block info. Many of these define things such as blocks or tokens or entities or permissions, or menu items basically, or router items. And you also have hooks that react to events. These are super helpful, specifically hooks that will fire before you save a node, for example, or before you update a node, or before any field is attached to the form. And then hooks that alter stuff, such as hook form alter. This, this is the first hook I ever used when I started programming with Drupal. They allow you to modify forms that are provided by the system. For example, any of the views forms or any of the node forms, you can alter those. Also block view, node view, and there's a number of other hooks that allow you to alter things. So alter hooks are a special type of hooks because they receive parameters by reference. So you can see these parameters all start with this ampersand. And this ampersand basically allows us, they allow us to modify the values in those variables. So you're receiving those variables by reference instead of receiving the value of those the variables. You actually can modify it. So very often alter hooks do not use return. They simply just modify the variable. The variable is modified in the hook, and you don't need to return anything. You just, the variable is already different after you do this. So I want to show you an example. This is a very basic site that I put together, restaurant review sample site. And I have to clarify that you can probably do a lot of these things with custom modules. I have to say that sometimes I avoid custom modules because I want my basically my sites to be as light as possible, and I may only need to alter one form, so it doesn't make sense for me to look for a custom module that does like a contrib module that does a lot of other things. and adds a lot of overhead. A typical one is rules, for example. I love rules. I'm a co-maintainer of rules, but rules are often used to react to a node being saved, for example, or a user being created. You can do the same thing in a much lighter way by implementing one or two hooks. So I just want to show you what this restaurant review site does. It's a simple site. It has one node type called restaurant reviews, and it has three roles: reviewer, junior reviewer, and editor. The reviewers basically create nodes with restaurant reviews, and the editor approves those reviews so that they are shown to the anonymous user. Okay. So just to show you very quickly here, this is what it looks like. It's a very, very simple. It's just a table. It has the name of the restaurant, the name of the reviewers, Julia Child and Paul Hollywood. If you watch the British baking show, you know who Paul Hollywood is. And if you click on the review, you'll see that review that was created by Julia Child in this case. And the site also adds all this information via hooks. So I'm going to be showing you some of the hooks that I've implemented to make this possible. All right, so the first mention I have is hook form ID alter. So basically this implementation looks like this. This is the name of my custom module, which is BD Live Demo. Then the word form is part of the hook, which is here, okay? This is the form ID. So this form ID is restaurant reviews node. That's the idea of the form that, when you create this node, that's the form that gets invoked. And then the word form alter are basically, I'm sorry, the name of the form is actually includes form. So it's restaurant reviews, not form. And then the word alter is part of the hook. So this particular hook receives three parameters. It receives the form array, which is what is going to be used to build that form and show it to the user. The form state, which is basically storing values that are related to that form. As, for example, when the user submits that form, those values are stored in form state. And then the form ID. And in this case, form ID will match this that I have here on the big box there. So this is the hook that I'm going to use to modify that. So what I want to do is to pre-select the location to match the reviewer's field. So in this site, if you open the user accounts, for example, if I look at Paul Hollywood, Paul Hollywood is located in the East Coast, okay? So, and this is a field in the user entity. And when Paul creates basically a review, let's say I'm logged in as Paul here, I want this location to be automatically populated to match the location from my user account, okay? And so this is how I do it. So this is the implementation of that hook alter form. And what I do is the following. First of all, I load the user that is currently logged in this case, Paul Hollywood. I do the loading here. Then I get the location. So I get the value for the field location that is part of the user entity. And then I set that to form field location, language none, default value, and I set that value. So that will pre-populate that particular field so that Paul doesn't have to select East Coast whenever he submits a review. At the same time, he is able to change that. If he travels to the South, for example, he could select South there. So how do I know all of this part of the array? And one thing that I find super helpful is a module called devel, the development module, provides DPM, which is a way to output arrays in a way, actually output anything, objects, arrays, variables, anything, that allow you to basically inspect the array and find the exact location where I should put the value that I want to, I want to use in that form. So you may have seen that language none sometimes is written as quotation UND or UND or undefined, or which is basically language none. In a multi-site, in a multi-language site, you would replace this with the code for the language that you want to modify. Anyway, feel free to interrupt me at any point here, okay? So that was the first example. The next thing I want to do is to remove a field for a field option for a specific role. Let's just imagine for a second that I want to, one of the restaurant types that these reviewers can review is sushi restaurants. Let's say sushis are very, very complex food, and I don't want a junior reviewer to be able to review sushis. I want them to review anything but sushi. So I want to just remove sushis from the list of options that they can choose. And in fact, if I go to this, and if I click here, you see that there's no sushi in my restaurant types. Basically, I use the hook to remove that. I use basically the same hook. Again, it's the node form alter hook. So this is how I do it. The first thing I have to clarify, restaurant types are taxonomy terms. So I need to load the taxonomy term with the name sushi. They are part of a vocabulary called restaurant type. So the first thing I do is to load the taxonomy term with the name sushi. I store that in the term array variable. This particular function returns an array. This array, in my particular case, is just one term. Okay, so I need to get the first element of the array. To do that, I use reset, just to get the first element of the term array. Then I have to check whether the logged in reviewer is actually a junior reviewer. So I use this particular function for the currently logged in user. So if that is true, then basically I will unset from the form array, basically the information for sushi restaurants from that particular field in the form. And this is how I do it. How did I arrive at this? Well, again, I inspected the array. I did the form alter hook first, and I inserted a DPM there. And that allowed me to see all the items that are part of that form array. And then I find the specific spot, and then basically I code that into the function. All right, so another example, I want to add a custom validation callback. And this is, again, this is a very fictional example here. Let's say I want to prevent my junior reviewers from giving low ratings to American restaurants. I don't know why I want to do that, but perhaps I have invested on stocks in American restaurants and I just want to prevent junior reviewers from giving low rates. Okay. And I want to show you this in action. Let's say this is Paul, and I want to create something here, location south, and I want to select American, and I want to select not for me. So when I click save, that's the lowest score, by the way, not for me. I'm going to get this what, as a junior reviewer, you're not allowed to give bad reviews to American restaurants. So that I did that with custom validation. And this is how I did it. So I also used the alter function, the hook that I showed you before. And the only thing I needed to do is to add a callback, a validation callback with a string. Basically, this is the name of the function that's going to provide that validation, that custom validation. That's it. That's all I need to do. Then I need to write that actual validation function. That validation function will receive form and will receive form state. Notice that I'm receiving form. I don't need to receive it as through reference. I could just receive it normally. I'm not going to modify the form, okay? And this one is not needed either, because I mean I really don't need the ampersand here, but I just left it there because of habit. I have to tell you that sometimes you do need to modify form state, and sometimes you forget about the ampersand. And it has taken me sometimes, I remember a few years ago, spending hours trying to find where the problem was, why my validation or my alter function was not working. And I ended up discovering that I just had forgotten that. So from then on, I always write it, even if I don't need it. So the first thing I need to do is to obtain the values that the user submitted. Those are stored in form state values. Then I also need to obtain the term, the taxonomy term, for restaurant type American. Okay, I do the same thing. I reset the array just to get the first term returned by that function. And then I just have an if statement. If the user role is junior reviewer and the value in the field restaurant type coincides with the term ID for American restaurant, and if the score is not for me, then I'm going to set an error in the form. I'm calling a function called form error. The first parameter is basically the field array inside form, okay? The second parameter is the message that I want to show. There's a third parameter where you can, you can specify whether this is an error or this is a warning. In this particular case, this is an error. I think that's right. I have to double check that. But yeah, in this case, I just want to stop the submission of the form. So by doing this, by just invoking form error in the validation function, what I'm accomplishing is the fact that the user is going to see the message and the form will not submit. So the form is rebuilt and the user has to change that to something else. So if I choose fair, then it's going to save normally. All right, good. So another example. Let's see if I'll show you this one. This one is a quick one. I want to hide a field from the form. The field approved is an internal field that I use just to indicate whether that review has to be shown to anonymous users on the home page. So as you saw, I just submitted a review for Whataburger. And if I go to my browser, restaurant reviews, you'll notice that Whataburger is not included in this table, basically because it has not been approved yet. So if I go here and I edit that node, you're going to see that there's this particular field approved, which is a Boolean field. It's not showing for the reviewer. It's showing only to the administrator. So I can now resave that. And if I go home, you will see that Whataburger is now shown there. Okay, so it's an internal field. I don't want the reviewers to be able to see that field. Okay. So again, I do that in two ways, with two hooks, basically. Hook permission. I'm going to define a permission, and the permission is going to be called approve review. And then I'm going to alter the form. I'm going to check that the user has that permission. And if it does, I'm going to show that particular field. If it doesn't, that field is going to be hidden. And I'm going to use the access property from the form array to hide the field that is not supposed to be shown. So this is in action. It's super, super quick, very easy. Hook permission will create that permission. The permission is called approve reviews. And then basically I do a form alter implementation. And I just check with user access if the currently logged in user has this permission. then access will be true for this particular field. If it doesn't, then access will be false, which means that the field will not be shown to the user. One thing I want to point out is because I created that permission, if I go to user accounts and I open permissions, you're going to see that that permission is now listed. Notice that they are grouped by the name of the module. So my custom module is called Backdrop Live Hooks Demo. Therefore, this permission appears under that grouping. Okay, it's right here. And there's no way around it. So you cannot create a permission to be shown within the administration bar group. If your module is not the administration bar module, then the permission that you create is not going to be shown here, as far as I know. Okay, let's see. Lots of talking here. So the next hooks that I'm going to show you, they are going to alter the display of nodes, and they're going to react upon saving, editing, and deleting nodes. I think I'm going to skip directly to these ones, to saving, editing, and deleting, because those are very, very helpful. I use them all the time. And I think a lot of custom modules actually use that. It is one of the easiest way to extend Backdrop. And we're talking about modules, simple modules, and modules as complex as UberCart, for example. UberCart basically does a lot of this, just implements these hooks so that it can save additional information with the nodes. So let me skip a little bit here. Yeah, so basically what I want to do is to keep track of number of reviews that each reviewer has. If you go back to my homepage, if you click, for example, Whataburger, it shows you the review for Whataburger. And then it shows the number of approved reviews that Paul Hollywood has, which is 3, and the total number of reviews that he has, which is 4. Right now here, you can see the 3 approved reviews that he has. Okay. So this particular variable, the number of approved reviews and total number of reviews is stored basically in the user account. So if you go to user account and do manage fields, you are going to see there's a couple of fields there. One is number of reviews, the other is number of approved reviews. So whenever the site saves a review written by Paul Hollywood, what I do is I use a pre-save or an update hook, and I catch that, and I then modify these user variables or user fields, basically. Okay, so this is how it's done. So I already explained this, and these are the 3 hooks that I use: node insert, node update, and node delete. Node insert is only invoked whenever someone saves a new node. Node update is only invoked after saving after you edit an existing node. And node delete is invoked after deleting a node. There's another one that I'm not showing, which is pre-save, which is invoked before a node is saved to the database. So this is what it looks like. I'm implementing node update here. So this hook will receive a node object. Notice some of you, I think, during Backdrop Live asked me, why don't you use an ampersand in front of node? And the explanation is simple. Nodes are objects, and objects are always sent to these hooks, and they're always received by reference. So if you modify the variable node, you will be modifying the object itself. Okay. If you don't want to do that, you have to clone that object to avoid, like, for example, messing up the object or doing something that you don't want to save in the database. So I don't need the ampersand because this node is passed by reference. So the first thing I do is to check the type. If the node is restaurant reviews, then I proceed. One thing I receive also is the original node, and this is within the node object. So the node that I received has one property called original, which is another object. Basically, it's another node. It's a clone of the original node. Okay, and that is super helpful because it allows me to compare to see if there was any difference between the original node and the node that got just saved, basically. So the first thing I want to do is to get the value of the field approved. Remember, this is a Boolean field. This is what tells me whether the editor has approved that review or not. Okay, and I want to get the value both from the original node and for the node that was just saved. So I will compare that, the original value and the new value. If they are different, then something happened. The editor either unclicked the approval box or they clicked it, and it's different from the state before that was edited. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is to get the number of approved reviews. Notice that I'm getting this from the user. Okay, the user is actually, I think I forgot to put it here. I have to load the user before doing all of this. Oh, it's actually here. Yes, it is there. And what I'm doing is basically getting the user who created the node, in this case, Paul Hollywood. So I want to get that particular user. I'm going to get the number of approved reviews. And then if the change was from no, not approved to yes, approved, then I have to increment that. If it was the opposite, if it was from yes, the editor disallowed the review, then I have to decrement that. And then simply I just assign that new value to the user and I save the user. Okay, it's just to store that particular value. Okay, so simple example. Again, nodes, hooks allow me to do these kinds of magic here without, resorting to contrib modules or anything like that. Okay, so the next example, let's see how much time I have, about 10 minutes or so. Again, if you feel free to interrupt me at any time, it feels like I'm talking to an empty.
I just had a quick question. If you could go back one slide, I just had a question on your previous slide where you are using your user save to update a user object within your update hook. Now, yeah. And I want to make sure this is consistent between Drupal and Backdrop because I got myself into trouble with this in Drupal. Is that even though node is passed by object, you actually can't take action on the nodes from within the update hook. So for example, if I modified the node value somewhere in here, I can't save the node from within an update hook without creating an endless loop. Is that the same in Backdrop as it is in Drupal?
Yes, it is. Yeah, okay. You have to be careful with these hooks because you may end up with an infinite loop. If you're saving the same node that you received, within the update hook, that's going to invoke the update hook again and again and again. So yeah, definitely you have to be careful. I mean, there are ways to get around that. Very often the pre-save hook is safer, but you don't save the node in pre-save hook. You assign a value. The pre-save hook is invoked before the node is saved. So if you want to change something in the node, you assign the value of a property to that node, and then Backdrop will take care of saving that node for you. So you don't run the risk of creating these infinite loops. But yes, absolutely. It's so easy to get in troubles with this. Typically, I use these hooks to modify other entities. For example, it could be another node, or it could be a user like I'm doing here. But you don't want to resave the node that you're receiving. That can be a little risky. especially with update hooks. Insert hooks are a little different because they are only invoked when the node is saved for the very first time. So you could get away with saving that node a second time. That will invoke an update hook, not the insert hook. So if you're careful, you'll avoid that. Yeah, great question. Thank you. So the next example, I want to provide a bulk action so that the editors don't have to edit that review manually. They could just do like a bulk operation to approve a bunch of review at the same time. And this is unique to Backdrop, I have to say. In Drupal, you had to use bulk operation, and you could actually define an action there as well. The way you define them are slightly different. In Backdrop, we do have a light version of bulk operations in core. Okay, so this is how. Let me show you how this works. So let's see. These are all the reviews. This is a view basically, and you can see here that there's this Le Petit Patisserie is not approved yet, so I can select it. I can approve this preview and execute that, and that will change that to approved here. I could also remove the approval from all of those. Okay, and if I do that, my homepage will be blank basically because no reviews is approved. So how do you do that? Let me show you. Let me approve all of those again. Super simple. And this is a great example of the power of hooks. So I have to define an action. And the way to do that is I use hook action info. And that action will change the value of the field approved for the nodes that have been selected. So the first thing I do is I define two actions. One of them, and these are actually in hook action info. Yeah. One of them is the approval, and the other one is removing approval. They both use the same callback. Okay, so this function is going to be invoked for every node that I have selected on the table. So if I selected 10 items, it will be invoked 10 times. Okay, every time that function is going to receive the entity, in this case, the node. So it's going to receive that node object. So this is what the callback looks like. You can use any name that you want for the callback. It has to match the one here, of course. And it has to be available. So this one receives node and context. And if you wonder what is context, you can always go to the definition of the hook. I think this hook is defined in system.api.php, and read the documentation there. That will tell you exactly what you're receiving. The other thing you could do is to just use DPM and to output the context array. Okay. So if the action name is this one, approve review, then I want to just modify the field and I want to set it to 1. Otherwise, I just want to set it to 0, basically removing the approval. And then the last thing I do is to save that node. So as I said, this is invoked 10 times or however many times, however many nodes you've selected. Okay. So super convenient, super easy. There are a few limitations in this. One of them is the fact that it doesn't use batch processing by default. That means if you have 10,000 nodes, you run the risk of timing out. So basically your server will time out and the process will not complete. There are some ways to actually modify the callback so it creates a patchwork, a batch process, sorry. And there are some examples of that in core. My suggestion is if you want to have batch processing, that you use views bulk operation, which I ported about a year ago. Basically the way you create actions is slightly different. but you can create your own actions, and they will, by default, all have batch processing, which is a little safer. All right, enough about food. Let's talk about desserts now. So these are kind of the additional hooks that I want to mention. Let's see. There's one that I find is not related to the restaurant side, but I find very, very helpful. Once in a while, we get these questions about, I want to display a node, but I don't want to use the default view. I want to have a URL that will display a node using a different view mode. For example, let's say I created this URL, and I'll show you how I did that. So if you did just this, Node 7, it will show the default view mode. But I wanted to show the, let's say, the teaser mode. And that will show the teaser mode. Of course, you can do this with views easily, but if you wanted to create a path to display a specific view mode, this is how you do it. So the first thing is you need to create your menu item, your router item. Okay, and that the path that I'm creating includes two parameters: the NID, the node ID, and the view mode. You can see that here. Okay, so the first part that was node 7. Oops. And then you had view mode, and then the name of the view mode. Yeah. So this is how I did it. The first parameter is, I don't know what you call this. This is a percentage sign, percentage sign node. And then the second parameter is just a percentage sign. There's an explanation behind it. I don't think I have time to go into this in depth, but there's an autoloader. So this, the backdrop will load the node and will pass it as a parameter. When there's only the percentage sign, you only get the string. So in this case, the function that will be called will get the string teaser. It won't get an object. It will be just the string. Okay. So title callback is the callback that backdrop provides to create the title for the page. So I'm keeping that the same way. I mean, if you look up node, this part, that part exists on backdrop. So I'm just using the same definition, title callback and title argument. The part that's different here is this one. The page callback, it's a custom function that I created. And that page will receive two arguments, 1 and 3. And you may be wondering, what the heck does 1 mean and 3 mean here? They basically are sending the object in position 1. So this is position 0, position 1, position 2, and position 3. So it's going to send the object, the node object, and it's going to send the string to that particular function. Okay. I also have an access argument. Basically, I'm checking that the user can view the node, basically. So that's the first argument there, position 1. So, and then this is my callback. Super simple. So I'm receiving the node object, as I mentioned, and I'm receiving the string with the view mode. So I want to get the controller, and I want to just invoke the method view. This method view receives two things: an array of objects. In this case, it's only one object, and the view mode. So I'm sending that to view, and I'm storing that in a variable. I just need to return that variable. That variable is an array. It's called a build array or a renderable array. Backdrop knows exactly what to do with that array. It's going to use it to build what you see here. Basically, all of this all of that information was part of the array that I returned. So it's a very, very easy thing, and it's super, super convenient. It allows you to do different things to paths and to create very helpful ways to display these modes in different ways. I think I'm gonna stop there. We only have 5 minutes, and I have a class actually in 5 minutes. So I encourage you to look at the rest. There's some cool ones that are I haven't discussed here. One of them is altering the field UI to create more settings for fields. So then you can use those settings to do very cool things to the field, like for instance, change the way they're displayed, or hide them, or disable them, and so forth. Okay. So I'm gonna stop there and see if there are any questions or comments.
This might be an obvious one, but we're gonna get a link to your deck that you just presented? The presentation that you just gave has tons of useful information. Where can I get it?
Right, it's on GitHub. It's in my GitHub RG Piano. And then / let me actually share it here so you can see that.
Try to get it in the notes for the YouTube video.
Right, yeah. It's so if you go to my handler here, RG Piano, I can't type. If you go to BD Live 2023 presentation, so you will see here the slides that I just showed right there, and this is the if you click here, you will see the custom module. It's a custom module that contains it's very well documented. So I included comments that explain exactly all the examples that I just showed. It also includes some the views. So you can actually, if you install this module, you will basically be installing your the restaurant review site that you just saw. It will create the content type. It won't create any content. You have to create the content. It won't create any users either, but it will create a role and all the views and everything. All right. I think I'm going to get going here, but thank you so much. It's great to see everyone.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to get this recorded for other people.
Yeah.
Great, wonderful. See you next time then.
Thanks, Alejandro.
Okay, bye now. So before I stop the recording, does anybody want to say anything more about this topic as part of the recording? If not, we'll go ahead and end the recording and we can hang out and chat between meetings. Okay, bye.